and experts in our first post-budget Money Watch. Today we have Mr. Tembo, President of the Patriots for Economic Progress, PEP, one of our opposition parties. Over the years, PEP does release an alternative budget, and they will do so this year as well. But this evening, we would like to hear directly from their president as to what they thought of the 2022 national budget. Good evening, Mr. Tembo.
Good evening, Mr. Tomba. How are you?
Good to have you. It's a bit dark where you are, but I'm sure we can get you loud and clear. And we'll make out your image as we speak. But good to have you on S24's Money Watch. Now, Mr. Tembo, from your press release this morning, aside from you agreeing with the theme of the budget, looking at the current economic situation, the budget presentation in general did not meet your expectations fully. Could you take us through some of the major areas you felt the government fell short?
Well, I think for us, the starting point is that, first of all, when you look at the budget, we do appreciate the fact that it is being prepared and presented at a time when this country is going through a lot of economic upheaval, part of it caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has adversely affected the global economy, as well as our current debt distress, whereby this country has borrowed more than it can actually repay. And we have this huge debt burden on our shoulders. So we are cognizant of those challenges in which provide the context of the development of the 2021 national budget. However, we feel that a lot more could have been done in this particular budget just to ensure that we get the best of what is available. For starters, when you look at one of the biggest challenges facing the economy at the moment, our view is that it is the adverse impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And, excuse me, in that regard, it is important to note that the COVID-19 pandemic did not affect all sectors of the economy equally. There are certain sectors of the economy which have been more affected than others. And our view is that some of those sectors which have been so badly hit by the COVID-19 pandemic include the hospitality and tourism sector. And our expectation was that the government was going to extend a helping hand to these sectors by availing them affordable loans, either being interest-free loans or at the least subsidized interest loans, so that these sectors can basically pick up. Because these sectors have been paying salaries for their staff, and yet they have not been operating for more than 8 months now.
Yeah.
And when we saw the proposal in the budget of reducing the corporate tax rate from 35% to 15%, we felt that that fell short of what needs to be done in the hospitality and tourism sectors for them to rebound and be able to basically employ the labor force that these sectors were employing prior to COVID-19.
Yeah, I know there's a lot you'd want to highlight, which you obviously look forward in your alternative budget when you release it. But moving on, some of our major external partners were keen to see this estimate of revenue and expenditure on the part of our government for the fiscal year that's upcoming. How do you see the external partners reacting to this budget in the short term? Do you see a positive reaction from our external partners?
Well, I think when you look at the budget overall, the 119.6 billion, it is quite ballooned because it is not being supported by the necessary domestic resources. You will note that only 57% plus or minus of the budget for 2021 is actually being funded from domestic resources. The 43% is actually being funded from borrowing. And what we're saying is that one of the biggest challenges that our economy is facing today is because of borrowing. So for us as Patriots for Economic Progress, we fail to understand how additional borrowing is going to help get us out of this economic quagmire. So it looks like government is essentially putting the cart in front of the donkey in trying to resolve this matter. And also, in terms of prioritization of the expenditure of available resources, you will note that there is too much emphasis on charitable activities at the expense of economic empowerment activities. And our view is that activities such as the Farmer Input Support Program, activities such as the social cash transfer, these are charitable activities, and together they add up to about 8 billion kwacha. And yet, activities related to economic empowerment only account for about 266 million kwacha, which is a small fraction of the money that is being allocated towards charitable activities.
Yeah.
So our view is that if we are going to turn around this country and put it on a path of economic sustainability, what we need to do as a nation is to devote more resources towards economic empowerment activities and less resources towards charitable activities. Because when you talk about economic empowerment, you are talking about basically extending small loans to a number of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And these people out there usually don't look for too much money. Just a small loan of about 3,000 kwacha, 5,000 kwacha will go a long way for a woman in Mandevu to start her own business. And then she can be repaying that loan in small installments of maybe 30 kwacha per day or 50 kwacha per day.
Right.
So if we do not do that and we believe in the handouts cannot take this country anywhere.
Right. So you haven't answered my question, though, but I'll take it that you're saying our external partners will have a wait and see for now, isn't it? Until they see how we start implementing the budget.
Yeah. When you say external partners,
Our cooperating partners,
IMF,
IMF, donors, people that will normally run to if we're in need of funds.
Yeah. The thing about external stakeholders is that each group has got their own interests. So the interests of these multilateral institutions, such as the World Bank, the IMF, is towards fiscal discipline. And when you look at the budget for 2021, it has very little fiscal discipline because it projects a very significant fiscal deficit. And when you look at other stakeholders, such as our stockholders, the people where we borrow money, let's say the Eurobond holders, their interest is basically the economic sustainability of our nation and our continued ability to be able to service our debt obligations.
Yeah.
And in that regard, obviously, those would also be concerned if they see that we are borrowing even some more, even if we are struggling to keep up to date with our current payments. So I doubt that there would be any external stakeholder that would be happy with the 2021 national budget.
Right. Mr. Tembo, finally, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being very poor and 10 being excellent, what rate would you give this budget in line with some of the points that you've raised in your press statement this morning?
Well, I'm usually very conservative. So I would give it maybe a 4
as an accountant, it's very typical.
Yeah, so a 4 out of 10 would be a fair mark of the content and presentation of the budget.
When do you release your alternative budget? We'd like to have a look at it as stakeholders.
Yes, we should be releasing our alternative national budget, which will be our 4th, on the 21st of October of this year, so which is about plus or minus 3 weeks from now.
All right, Mr. Tembo, thank you for coming through to S24's Money Watch. We hope to have you back soon, especially after you release your alternative budget.
Thank you, and have a good evening. It's a little bit hot in Lusaka, but I hope we shall survive.
Yes, we will. That was Mr. Sean Tembo.